It's been said before, and I'll say it again. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So where would you rather be than right here and right now on the Ralph Rant? Let's go.
Welcome to the Ralph Rant, your source for hard-hitting Buffalo Bills takes. Now, here's your host of the Ralph Rant, that veteran watcher of generations of Bills teams, the prophet who predicted Josh Allen's greatness, that opinionated so-and-so you've walked out on parties because of, the Ralph.
Welcome in. It's a Sunday. It's Championship Sunday. I think this worked out all right. I stuck in a new intro. Kind of weird, though. It didn't play like it usually did. Welcome in, friends. If you're here on this short notice on a Championship Sunday, we're not going to go too long here. Just take us right up to the kickoff in Denver, I believe, is the first game. It's funny how you lose touch with that stuff when the Bills are out of it. And it's been a hell of a week, and it occurred to me that for the staunch guys that hang out here, that you've had no chance to have a voice on this channel all week. I've been running my mouth all week about what I think has gone on and what I feel has gone on. So this will be devoted to you guys largely. And I had not heard this from Badass. Yes. Bills interviewing a ham sandwich for head coach. Now, it had to be the Phillip Rivers thing, I'm sure, that got you going on that. And, you know, I could see that. I could see them actually asking Phillip Rivers. I think one of the things that has the biggest impact on why McDermott got fired is the fact that Mike Vrabel has walked in to the Patriots and has done what he has done in one season, and the Bills, they've had 9 to do it. You know, I just put out a video that stated that Buffalo has had it good with Josh Allen, and McDermott also wearing what I describe as the quarterback halo. And I stated in the video that the Bills since 2020 have a .710 winning percentage, which is great. That's why a lot of people are calling for McDermott to come back. But, you know, during that time, 6 games a year, over that 6 years, that's 36 games, 36 division games, those teams, those other AFC East clubs during those seasons were a collective .429 winning percentage. I should hope you would have won the division that often. I should hope that you're making the playoffs every season. So, and I think the fact that McDermott had Josh Allen those years, and I'm not putting McDermott down so much because I'm saying that McDermott comes into the Bills. He's a brand new head coach. He's trying to figure things out. So he's going to make things exact. He gets stringent. He invokes the process, as he calls it. And they end up having a great first season with Tyrod Taylor. That Atlanta game where they went down there and won, went to the playoffs, excitingly so, that very first season. That was a great start for him. And then they get Josh Allen, go 6-10, and then they start winning. Well, of course you start winning with Josh Allen. I just feared that Josh Allen wasn't taken advantage of as much as possible because you've got a guy that's learning to be a head coach right from the start of Josh Allen's career, and a defensive head coach at that. So I think this is big. This is really important, not only for the Bills, but from Allen's career perspective also, because of what they need to do. But I said I wasn't going to yak, and this is about comments, so let's get going. We got Tony Morgan in the house. Hey, how's it going? Hey, man, how are you? I haven't talked to you guys in a while. We haven't had a pregame or a postgame since that thing that happened last week. So welcome in. So I hope we get a good head coach. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Brandon Beane has Terry Pegula wrapped around his little fingers. Ooh, like that. I wonder what the head coach will say if he had asked to answer directly to Beane instead of Terry. Is this Beane's team or Terry's? Black Cloud, I have a strong opinion on that. And I mean, let's just get to the bottom of it right here. Is that I believe that when Brandon Beane said the word CEO in the press conference in terms of an incoming head coach, that wasn't by accident. They are looking for a CEO. Sean McDermott operated in the CEO position. I don't think Brandon Beane minded that at all. It was fine when things were great and they were getting some good picks and some of those early mistakes could be excused away. But I think Brandon Beane liked it that way. I think Brandon Beane liked having McDermott as the CEO, and he was the boss. Come on, guys. We all watched the stuff unfold over the years. McDermott was the boss. But I think they still want that. I don't think that Brandon Beane wants to. It's not some big takeover of the team. I give Terry Pegula, the credit for having, thought about this some as the season goes along. And I think he just saw what he saw, which, like I said, actually pushed him to say the words, Sean, we're going to go a different direction. But it had been building up. So I think it's Terry's team, certainly. I think Beane is competent, but I think there was some problems. I think there were rifts there. But I think they want a head coach that is going to have an ability to understand and scout talent also. Surprised they haven't asked Jim Schwartz, but keeping going here. Philip Neely is with us. You're on point with that one. So he comes in and turns around the Patriots quick. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's the biggest indictment of McDermott there really is. I mean, you build up all these initial things, so, sort of the slow early start. I mean, they went 4-0, certainly, but a couple of roughing the kicker penalties helped that a great deal. And then they lost the two, and that was before the bye. And they had that time to think about it. I had my theories on it and so forth, but they just played tight at times, and I think the teams take on the personality of their head coach. And I think the Patriots have done that. Because the Patriots kind of play like Vrabel. And the Bills were kind of playing like McDermott. But yes, that's a huge, huge piece of it and a huge indictment on McDermott that Vrabel was able to come in there and do that. And McDermott in all those seasons with that quarterback. I mean, Josh Allen is better than Drake May, right? Yeah, Mike Vrabel is doing that with him in season 2. Whereas in season 2 with Josh, they got to the wild card and lost a 19 or 16 to nothing lead, something like that. Does this season failure sting worse than 13 second year in your eyes? No, well, you can compare them like that. You can compare the different losses in different years, but I look at it more as sort of just the whole encyclopedia of how this has gone over these seasons. So I think it's just another, another act in this Greek tragedy. And a fitting one. And I think, Terry Pagula saw that. He was moved by it I like that he was honest in the press conference. People are saying, oh, you don't say that about Keon. Maybe, or it's out of place or whatever else. But one thing, though, for sure. He was telling the truth. I'm sure that's what happened. Bean tries to spin out of it a little bit later, but I'm sure that's what happened, which tells me there was differences over the player acquisition piece of it. Because Bean said that, or Terry Pagula said that Bean wanted someone different. So that this is important because it now points out that, okay, these other situations and things could have spawned this. I mean, who picked Kaiir Elam and then couldn't make it work? Was there arguments between Bean and McDermott that ensued maybe in more recent years over the fact that young players couldn't get on the field with McDermott's overly complicated defense, while you've got much simpler defenses like in Houston, which are just cutting players loose to attack? I don't know. I don't know Vic Fangio's defense, but I know Cooper DeJean didn't go through a struggle trying to learn how to play in the National Football League like Cole Bishop did. And Cooper DeJean was on Vic Fangio's Philadelphia Eagles defense. And, of course, Cole Bishop on McDermott's Bills defense. So I think that's a thing. I mean, how often do we see young players on other teams doing well? It's like, where are our rookies? Well, they're not on the field. Why aren't they in the field? Well, because the coaching staff doesn't trust them. Why doesn't the coaching staff trust them? Because the scheme is too freaking hard. I hear the dogs are in agreement. Studio door's not shut. We're not going long today because we're going to get into the games. And again, if we ended up going past 3 o'clock, which I probably won't, I don't start watching the game ever till we're done. And I watch a lot of games delayed where I can blast through the commercials. So, but I think all of the seasons together kind of put it together for me of how it is. If you think about it, Rivers was like a player coach in Indy before he retired. Well, the other thing badass that points out is how closely the Bills are looking at Vrabel having been the player and then coming back. And Philip Rivers is interesting from that standpoint. But the problem is Philip Rivers doesn't have 6 years of head coaching experience elsewhere before coming here. And that's the other point that I don't think I stressed maybe enough in the video. But the fact of needing a veteran head coach, needing someone who's done it before. I mean, McDermott not only was a defensive head coach, he was a first-time head coach. It's not that they did such a great deal of developing Allen. It's, my God, what could Allen have become with like somebody that really has an idea for an offense for Josh Allen that's as special as Josh Allen is. But definitely Philip Rivers, that's a matchup with Vrabel. Oh, here could be a version of Vrabel, except doesn't have the previous head coaching experience. McDermott couldn't stop Bo Nix. That's all he had to do. Yes, there was a 27-23 lead Get a stop. Get a fucking stop, man. It's so easy. Well, you would think. Thanks, Alpha Rob. Good to see you here. Gathering up a few here, enjoying your pregame thoughts. It's always still Go Bills. Thank you, Jacob Spears, for being here. Black Cloud, watch McDermott turn into Andy Reid. How Andy got fired from Philly and then won multiple Super Bowls with Kansas City. McDermott could do that himself with another team. He deserves it the way he was fired. Yeah, I don't know if there was a gentle way to fire him. I do not disagree with this comment, Black Cloud. I feel like guys on their second run, that's how they've often gotten success. You know, Andy Reid, Tony Dungy is another example. Belichick, of course, second-time head coach. Mike Vrabel, second-time head coach. This is one reason why Brian Daboll really intrigues me. I was going to say from before, as we get ready to watch these games, it's interesting how I know all of you were really dialed in on what the Bills were doing, as was I. We were living and dying by it. The games were just hell, weren't they? My God. But now we don't have that feeling because the team is not in it. And it's interesting to me, and I don't know how much you agree as Bills fans, that you go in now to the remainder of the postseason, which is exactly 3 games, and will largely be rooting against teams. Because nobody wants to see the Patriots back at the Super Bowl before the Bills even got to one, during the chance that they had after Brady left. And Belichick was exposed as maybe a good coach with like a really good quarterback. But yeah, I'm looking forward to watching and hoping teams lose. It's a whole different mindset than cheering on your team. What up, Steve? Smash that like for Ralph Rant. Thank you. What's up, Tommy? What are you doing? You're getting ready to watch these ball games, I'm sure. Just wanted to give everybody a chance to chat here. Jacob Spears, Phillip Rivers might be a good coach. He might very well be. The guy's smart. You know, there's got to be more pressure on Josh Allen. The only time Josh Allen has had that in his career with Brian Daboll was on the sideline with him. Now you get a couple of guys walking up to him on the sideline, talking to him in hushed tones like they were Secret Service or something. Not that there's a lot of occasion for this, but you would think that once in a while somebody would walk up and go, "What the hell was that, Josh? What was that?" But no, you don't see that. And it's as if McDermott doesn't want that. He pushed it off of his sideline when it was there. In Hard Knocks, before the season, he makes a clear identification that he doesn't think that motivating and incisive yelling and screaming type of coaching has any place with the chair through the window incident, his high school football team. You remember what I'm talking about. He's on the sideline. He never says that. You don't hear him. You don't see him talking to other people on the sideline with the exception of referees. You don't even hear him conversing with coaches that much, largely because both coordinators are upstairs in the booth, which doesn't happen anywhere else in the league, by the way. Why is that? Ralph Rant joining me and Mikey Dan Mitchell on We Believe in Bean Island. Come to the dark side, Bill Mafia. I love it. I believe in Bean Island. Definitely believe in Bean Island. It's nice that there's the call to bring McDermott back. There's a sentimental thing with McDermott. He led us out of the desert of the drought. But like Moses, he can't get us across the river into the land flowing with milk and honey. It's how it worked for Moses, maybe for McDermott. You should go coach the Raiders. We believe in Bean Island. So, Tommy, what are you doing that right now? That sounds like a great show, actually. Bean Island. All right. Got guys conversing. Yeah, it could be a spark on the coach, certainly. Blackhawk, I can't force myself to watch the Pats-Denver game today. Too depressing. However, I will watch because I want to see if Denver can pull the upset off. The only thing to me that really would help make the Bills fans feel better, because you kind of, even though you don't like losing to a team, you want the team that you lost to go all the way, which makes you appear a little better, more or less, right? In a certain way. So if you keep that in mind, then you'd want Denver to win. But if Denver would be able to win with Stidham, the Patriots cast-off quarterback, and beat the Bills' division rival in the AFC Championship game with the Patriots' old guy, because the Bills, although they couldn't manage to win the game last week in Denver, did leave a little door prize of a dog turd with Denver by having Bo Nix leave the game with one play left with a broken ankle. I don't think he even left the game. He played the whole thing. It was second to the last play. Can you believe that? That would be irony in its highest. And I think, furthermore, if I know a lot of people like the Rams tonight in Seattle, but this business with a big possibility now, you've got two very fresh head coaches. Mike Vrabel might very well be in the Super Bowl. And then McDonald in Seattle. This is his second year. And he didn't have Sam Darnold last year. It's not like he started out a system with a quarterback. And he's a defensive guy, of all things. Of course, it's one of the coordinators that the Bills are wanting to interview. But those are two head coaches going to the Super Bowl that are very fresh and have only had their quarterbacks for a couple of years. And neither of the quarterbacks were as good as Josh Allen. And the Bills have been all that close all that time. I don't know. It's like, I think it was almost like a mindset. I used to play in this band, and every show there would be this one little part that I'd be coming up to, and I was a little bit worried about. It was just a mental thing, maybe a little hesitant though, or whatever. It's like McDermott just got that final chaotic hesitance at the end of some of these games. Anyway, I want to make sure everybody understands here this fine piece of artwork, which is kind of to scale because McDermott's not that tall. And as you can see, it's a ceilinged room where it's busting above Josh Allen, who is hunched down because the ceiling is low. You can see it just fits Sean McDermott. I don't know if that comes through in the artwork or not, but I am mansplaining it. So sorry about that. So, yeah, go and find something to root against, and that's how you enjoy the playoffs when you're either disappointed like we are now or just emotionally unplugged from them if you're like a, I don't know, the Cardinals fan. You could get in Alan's face. I think you're talking about Dave's. Yes, definitely. I was hesitant at first, but now I want Phil. Oh, you're talking about Phillip Rivers. There are dumber ideas, I'm sure. I mean, the one I hypothetically, talked about bringing Rex Ryan back, but I was using that as an extreme hypothetical example in the video. But and I also did the area about musts, and then I'm saying, well, it must be a veteran head coach because we need to make sure that this guy has experience. We've already been through the first time non-offensive head coach, first time non-offensive head coach experience once that lasted this long. It had to break up. So did the Beatles in about the same amount of time. So, but the Bills have been through that. So, but Phillip Rivers almost might, get some sort of, even though he hasn't head coached the team, I think that he might have some background there anyway. Just something kind of tells me. Here's a question from Ralph. I had a discussion with a homie of mine at the gym yesterday. Do you think if Allen played for Coach Marv Levy and had that exact teams, would he have won all four? Yes. Because now you're talking about Ted Marchibroda. And you're talking about a defense that had a game record. And I like the question because what I believe the Bills really need to do, yes, you want somebody offensively brilliant. Somebody that's not going to walk away as a coordinator, somebody that actually comes in with the offensive mindset. But you have to design something special for this special player that is Josh Allen. You have to design something special. I don't know if he wins all four, Black Cloud, but he certainly wins the first one. Yeah, if you did your job for 9 years and didn't get it done, would your boss fire you or keep you? I like McD, but the time was for a change for us to get over that hump. And a lot of similarities in ways to what went on in Baltimore and in Pittsburgh, both with coaches that were kind of long in the tooth. Of course, both of those others had Super Bowls. And believe me, if McDermott wins one or two Super Bowls back when he should have, if he hadn't fucked up 13 seconds, then he's probably going to stay there as long as Tomlin does at Pittsburgh. Latina fever. To be honest, after last year, a convincing loss in the AFC Championship, the Bills should have fired McDermott. It should have been a new coach with a new number one wideout, and none of it was done. Well, it wasn't a convincing loss. I mean, it was. I mean, that's what sparked all these new rules. The Bills always spark the rules. I mean, about the. And they've done well with the cameras and marking things, because if you have those now, Dalton Kincaid gets the first down on the 3rd and 5, and you're not running Josh Allen on the 4th down, where he also got a first down. Said cameras would have shown that also, but none of that happened. And that's a bitch that it wasn't called correctly. Just like the catch last week with Brandon Cooks. It's a bitch that wasn't called correctly. And you can say both of those things and they're true. But what you also have to say is that the Bills, are consistently putting themselves in position to have the refs decide the game. It happens over and over somehow. Finding a new and more horrifying way to lose. It's almost like sequels to a horror movie. What can we come up with next? Truthfully, some other owners might have gone ahead and fired McDermott after 13 seconds because that's more egregious than anything McDermott did this past Sunday. I mean, let's face it, that game itself was it all started with James Cook's fumble. I mean, none of the rest of it can be discussed feverishly, speaking of Latina fever, without calling into question that as being the first thing that happened. McDermott and coaching staff is also responsible for player development as well. So there's that as well. Yes, that is absolutely true. It makes you wonder, and it's for me that's what Pagula's truthfulness during the presser did for me is, yeah, I mean, you knew he was telling the truth about this business with Keon being wanted by the coaching staff. He wouldn't have come out and made that shit up. Now, so once you accept that, then you start looking at a lot of these different situations as to people that were drafted. And I'm not saying who's right or wrong, who's up or down or whatever, but I am saying that you could see how there would be big discussions of whose fault is this? You drafted this player. No, you screwed up his development. And the development side of it is so important. We sometimes get the sense that players coming out of college are some sort of finished product. And no, they're just ready to be developed. Especially quarterbacks, but it has to be done right, and they have to be given a chance. That's part of what made Josh Allen great, is his ability to maintain confidence throughout all of that. But yeah, I think there's an argument between what players were wanted. I mean, what went on behind the scenes of the big defensive draft where you didn't take a wide receiver until Caden Prather with the number 7 in the number 7 round. Tori is with us. Rex Ryan keeps talking BB. Oh, right. Belichick. You know, that's a CEO. I don't know how good Belichick was at drafting and how he was a CEO also, and it seems like he might have had his hand in it a lot. There was times when you wouldn't think much of Patriot drafts. Tom Brady covered for a lot of it. And I don't know if you want to get his girlfriend involved on one of these subject lines I put up when I'm doing a video. But, I mean, in a sort of fantasy way, that crossed my mind when you're thinking about, okay, what if you got Bill Belichick with Brian Daboll as the offensive coordinator and Jim Schwartz is the defensive coordinator? Yeah, touting Bill Belichick, yeah. And I saw that, Tori, on the Get Up program where he was talking. I saw him dazed off here looking at your comments a little bit. But yeah, he was pushing that very much. And that's pushing it, and also for his own reasons, thinking, yeah, this is what's going to happen. And I think the Bills are going to look at a lot of different people. I think they're not coming out of the drought now, and this is a very attractive job, and they have to really, really think it through correctly, and I hope they are. They strike me as intelligent men. Thoughts on big trade? I know it's crazy, but James Cook for a wide receiver number one. Not sure if that makes any cap sense. Well, whoever trades for James Cook is going to take up that contract, which is only 3 years and 48. So it's not like some receiver payments that you might be making in terms of cap. So it'd be possible, but I think James Cook is strong. You want to keep that going. I think Buffalo needs to maintain its ability to run. There's going to have to be some anchor points that you're going to look at going into this. But to me, the most important thing that this new coach will do is to create an offensive setup for Josh Allen that is designed for Allen to go out and create on plays. This is obviously, like I have said before, where Josh Allen is at his best. The most incredible stuff he does is stuff that he's creating or improvising, if you want to use that term. Some people could call it a busted play. How many busted plays have turned into this? Some of the greatest plays we've ever seen. A lot of them with Josh Allen. But I just think there is a way to really enable him to flow into the weaker spots of the defense and throw into the weaker spots of the defense in a creative fashion. But you always have to have the layup available to him. You need somebody playing the role of Cole Beasley. Got to have that. He's got to be able to make a layup when he needs to. That's been a big difference, and that is important to getting Josh into rhythm. McDermott had no clue who he had with Allen. Run first was totally ridiculous. Allen is a gunslinger. Will throw picks. Yeah, I mean, he didn't take advantage of what he had. And he was, I think, worried about learning how to be a head coach as opposed to, and a defensive one at that, with a complex defense at that, and not even next to what was going on there. But it has also not gone that way with head coaches. Marty Schottenheimer is a great example, the winning head coach with every team he coached with no Super Bowls or even an appearance. Yeah, there's just some guys that are going to get there and some that aren't. And some that at that big moment just can't pull off the win. It's like the Bills always were doing just enough to lose. And a lot of these playoff exits. I think it's sometimes a thing of, I don't know, is the franchise still underneath it all, a little unsure of itself? And when it gets to that big moment, you're not getting past it? And it seems like you should be able to get past it because you're so far into the process, into the playoffs, when you hit that moment that you can't get past. But I think you get there, it's like a brick wall, and I think they hit the brick wall again, and I just think there needs to be a different approach. And I think the beauty of the whole thing is that you've had Josh Allen with all these records, all these scores, all this excitement, all these wins, all these trips to the playoffs. You've done all of that with a first-time head coach who was a defensive head coach at that, with a really complex scheme at that. Yes, I'm repeating what I just said moments ago. This is what I mean. Josh Allen has been able to do all of that. Sean McDermott, what might he be able to do with a really good, effective head coach with presence, a leader who knows how to create something that will enable Josh Allen to become the artist that he is? He's not a technician. Technicians follow procedures. I think there's some great technicians. Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy. They kind of got it with Mahomes back early on, did Andy Reid, with they set up with Travis Kelce and all those throws to Kelce for Mahomes. That was this creative thing we're talking about. It was never something that was planned. It's like Seinfeld. It's a show about nothing, a play about nothing. Just know that these possibilities are bracketed here, and within those, we're going to do something. And they made that work. That's what needs to happen with Josh. Josh needs to have this easy button layup throw he can make on just about every play, such that, number one, he's assured of having rhythm and being able to get a completion, but also something that then has to be defended, which then ends up opening up these artistic sweeps he can make by changing something on the fly. Black Cloud, roger that. McDermott, as head coach, had never settled Allen down when he wigged out in the Texans playoff game. He knew he was a joke way back. Yeah, well, he was just getting started, and you need to give Josh. You needed to give Josh something more than that. This is my point of how much Josh did even with that. How much could Josh do with what he could get now? That's what's exciting about this. Badasses here. I definitely take Rivers as an OC. Possible. Whoever it is has to have these kind of ideas and be able to coach Josh up. Matt Collins walking out dressed as Luther from the Warriors. Remember, the Warriors come out and play. Poppy, did you see that, Ralph? Such a classic movie. I watch it often. Yes, I did. I have not seen it often. That's Mac for you. That's another strange situation with the Bills. With everything they did and everything they paid, why didn't you just get the guy that caught the most balls for you in that playoff game? A Denver loss would make last week a tiny wide right. That's a way to look at it. Emory Parrish is with us. How many would sign a glad he's gone petition? Very, very good. Great to see you on today. Glad McDaniel backed out of the meeting. Didn't want Hoodie in 90 weather. Hoodie boy in 90-degree weather. Right, is our head coach rooting for Denver to beat the Patriots. Thanks, Donald. Thanks for being in here. Yeah, I mean, he's the Dolphins head coach. I mean, that was never going to work. I mean, I know he's stylish, looking like some of the golfers with, the pant style that's a little short. I'm sorry, I'm under a rock. I don't know what that's called. And then the bare ankles. I mean, that's a real look at golf. But on the sidelines, I would just think you'd want a little bit more protection than that, number one. And I'm sorry, it's just not the look to me. How did that position try to work for Ted Nolan, right? It's useless and fetch for 15 minutes, whoever started it. Yes, Nolan came back, but years later, yeah. No, with Marv Levy, the game was so different. I don't know, perhaps. I think McD deadline to win was the new stadium. That's interesting. Mosque Dog, thanks for being here, man. If you are new, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Now, there are 47 of you watching on YouTube, and I find it difficult to believe that every single one of you is subscribed. So just take that moment right now, go and hit the subscribe button. You can like the video also, but that would be great. We're past 1,600 subs now, so we're having a blast. And it's going to be quite the off season now. I mean, they've made this an interesting news cycle. But thank you, for Boss Dog, for that point. I believe that's interesting. I like that one. Tomlin and Harbaugh won their Super Bowls before McDermott became a head coach, so yes, their time was up as well. Yeah, indeed. And I think the same with McDermott. If McDermott wins one or two of these, we're not having this discussion, and he'll be here the 19 years. Because there's a couple of trophies in the trophy case. That would make all the difference. But there's not. Dominic, it was with a really solid OC and DC. I'm fine with Rivers as head coach. He looks to be a fine leader of men and a culture setter. I agree. It's the guy who actually fits the parallel way, as I called it a couple videos ago, the parallel with John Elway. Now, Elway lost Super Bowls. Josh hasn't been to one, so forgive that part of the parallel not being exact. But we have Elway coached by Dan Reeves. They go and lose 3 Super Bowls with John Elway. And then Elway's offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan, for part of that time in Denver, losing those 3 Super Bowls. Well, Shanahan went away and became a head coach with the Raiders, failed miserably, and came back, and then went ahead and coached Elway now as head coach of the Broncos, and then they won 2 Super Bowls. And if you want the parallel between John Elway to Josh Allen, it's Mike Shanahan to Brian Daboll. Because Daboll was that early offensive coordinator that got Josh going like Shanahan did. And then Daboll left to go coach the Giants like Shanahan went and coached the Raiders. And then finally, the coordinator came back to the original team and coached the quarterback to glory. 2:38, we're getting about 22 minutes away from kickoff here. Extremely cold. I'm hoping you guys are keeping warm. We were well below 0 the night before last, closer to 0 last night. It's been, I think it's up into the low teens today, but we're getting some more snow. It's been quite the winter with this La Nina situation in the equatorial Pacific, which tends to give us a snowier winter. Well, that's certainly delivering. One thing the new coach must do is hold Josh accountable for dumb decisions. We need a no-nonsense guy, not a coddler. Tommy Yaba Yoga. I agree. Yes, he needs to be accountable for exactly those things. Those things can't happen. But it needs to be set up where he's creating. So it's not like a matter of making decisions on set things. Tom, thanks for being here in the room. Fume Drummer. Hey, Ralph, cheers. Enjoy your Sunday. Indeed. Getting ready to go be a Hatriot. Somebody must have come up with that already. A Hatriot. Filthy Dollar Bills is with us. They will hire Rivers to be involved with Allen. They will hire him as quarterback coach. I don't think he will be the head coach. Well, you know, Filthy Dollar Bills, you bring up a great point here, actually, about the fact that, yes, they are head coaching interviews, but very interesting to wonder if they're not looking at other staff possibilities also. And if they're looking at other possibilities for staff, that might make you think that they are perhaps considering like Grant Udinski, a 30-year-old phenom. Hopefully he's a bit older than Josh. I think he is. It has to be by months. But if you were going to bring in some sort of offensive prodigy, genius, he's got a great story. If you're going to bring in somebody like that, though, to be the head coach and create the offensive brain trust that's going to run this thing, you're going to have some really strong people around you. You're going to have some self-sufficient guys running some of the other stuff. Especially on the defensive side, you're going to need an old master. I don't know, old, I don't know if I mean that, but you're going to need somebody with presence and self-sufficiency. Schwartz and Dable, I can live with. Belichick is a no-go for me. Why Gruden not being mentioned? Well, you know, I've mentioned Gruden actually earlier in the season, and Gruden is interesting, although I'm just not sure you can sort of sign up for that Chucky intensity he sort of has, the Chucky intensity, if I could coin the term. I mean, he's a smart offensive guy, but he's been away from actually coaching in the game for a while. But it's interesting, though. He made this thumbnail that I've got going with prospective coaches. We'll see it in the next vid. Any word if Allen will undergo foot surgery or any other procedure for the abuse he sustained this season? Not trying to start any rumors or anything, just curious to see how badly hurt he really is. I believe he will have some sort of foot procedure, yes. And that apparently will not be anything that even dips into his availability for OTAs. Schwartz got a raw deal because of Rex. He had our D playing outstanding. Schwartz is great. Schwartz's defenses have been great in Cleveland. And yes, he's had Garrett. Maybe he's got the defensive end halo, like the quarterback halo I described. Coleman and the number one for Mad Max. Get her done, beanbag. That's interesting. I assume you're talking about Max Crosby with that. That's too much. I think it's too much. The petition to reinstate Coach McDermott and force Terry Pegula to do what's right is at 77,216 signatures. That's more than the new stadium can hold. Bills Mafia are not stupid. Light of Truth, 1095. And so you agree that's the right thing to do to reinstate him. Is that is that because of the fact that you think that he's just getting a raw deal because of how this was done and it's sort of an emotional reaction to the playoff game, or that, he actually has been really good? Yeah, I completely agree with the dismissal of McDermott. I just think there was problems there, like basic problems, just in some of how he was, how he seemed kind of rigid at times, how his sideline doesn't have any assistant coaches. I mean, there's assistant coaches, but it's like I said earlier, you don't have anybody coming up and really working with Josh and them discussing stuff and trying to coach him up. I mean, they walk up to him like they're Secret Service detail and he's some kind of a prince. I mean, it's just hushed tones. No coordinators around the sideline. I mean, it's as if McDermott doesn't want that. And when he had it, he got rid of it in the form of Dayball. So no, I don't agree with this. I think this is the right move. I think, Coach McDermott was great at what he did. I mean, and what he accomplished, but it just has always been the same at the end. And it's just sometimes things just have to change in order for them to move. And it's not about one thing being really right or another. You could certainly sit and argue either side of this effectively. Defense played tight because they couldn't make a mistake, sitting younger players in fear of failure. McDermott was more of a hindrance than a facilitator. He wanted his hands in every cupboard. Yeah, I think the control thing and I think my theory with McDermott is he comes in as a first-time head coach, really wants to do well, so he's gonna just go to the nth degree in every facet he can in trying to be thorough and detail-oriented and covering it all, learning everything he's learned. And so he does that wanting to ace this head coaching job. Who wouldn't? And then he makes the playoffs in the first season, breaking the playoff drought. That was great. I don't know how good it was for him. And why would I say that? Well, because now it's like, oh, okay, I'm a first-time head coach. And so that's the level of what you have to do in order to get into the playoffs. And the process became the process. Follow the process. Trust the process. Well, we stick with the process. Yeah, well, we like our process. We think our process works. But the problem is that now McDermott is convinced that that's how you have to do the job in order to get to the playoffs. And there's something missing, and it always comes out right at the end. Whereas the team should have won a number of these games. And I just think it's the answer. I mean, why do we want him back? Because he was so great. He was great. Well, he had Josh Allen. He couldn't get to a Super Bowl. I mean, it had 710.710 winning percentage since the 2020 season. Those 6 seasons that ended just a few weeks ago. But during that time, the rest of the AFC East was .429. I mean, I should hope you would go .710. And yes, I know the Bills were inflicting some of those losses, but that's just not versus each other winning percentages. That's the whole season. That's the Bills got to do against the rest of the AFC East what the Patriots used to be able to do against the rest of the AFC East and go on and win multiple Super Bowls, except the Bills didn't go on and win multiple Super Bowls. Those are facts without dispute. Then you ask yourself, why? Light of truth never happened. Pagula would have to admit a mistake, and that won't happen. Ever. Tommy Yaba Yoga, guarantee that new Highmark Stadium will be sold out every game next season. Nobody who signed that petition will talk with their wallet after the PSLs were already paid. Yeah, well, I mean, even if they want McDermott, it doesn't mean they're not going to not go to the game if they don't get him. That's great stuff. Thank you, Tom. Imagine owning a Ferrari and only using it to get your mail. That's McDermott with Josh. Zero innovation. Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think Sean McDermott had to learn how to be a head coach, and he had to stick with these very difficult principles he enacted to start with because he was just trying to make sure he aced it and had the unfortunate accident of making the playoffs the very first season. And so, now that's got to be my procedure forevermore, which he's been doing, and a lot of it's really tight. I mean, it just always jars me every regular season how many teams we see with young guys out there playing really, really well. Remember the game against the Rams 2 seasons ago that the Bills lost by a close score? And that young Rams defense and how many problems they were giving the Bills offense. Fisk, Jared Verse. And that young guys just out there playing, pushing, just playing free. You know, McDermott's defense is really, really, really complicated. It's like a match zone defense that essentially has rules in place of if this happens, this guy does this, and everyone else reacts to that. And you could see with the number of players we're talking about, there's usually 2 boxes that have one has 3 players, the other has 4. And that's how these concepts are drawn up. And you could see how many iterations there could possibly be based on what the offense does. Because these are not so much, it's not zone covering grass, it's zone match where how you react when something happens on the other side of the ball. And with those iterations, you could see where it would be really, really complex to come up with your rules because of how many different ways things could go. And I think that has been what I've heard about the Bills' defense being that complex. And with it that complex, young guys can't go out and excel. And then there's this whole feeling on the team that, rookies really have to earn their stripes and so forth. Horse crap. I see rookies doing great on other teams. Don't tell me that. That's another big problem I have with McDermott. It will happen when tens of thousands of Bills Mafia boycott one Bills drive. Yeah, that's going to happen. That new stadium's beautiful, man. Can't bring McD losing streak over to the new stadium. That's for damn sure. You could only go there with him if you were hanging a banner. It's been too long. If McDermott is so great, why has no team considered him for coach? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard any news on if he's been asked to interview anywhere, if he's going to hang out for a season, perhaps. Let's get through these comments. Ted Nolan, enough said, nobody boycotted the new KeyBank Center. Don't you think football is too random, though, to make the conclusion McD can never get over the hump? E.g., if Bucker misses that 50-yard field goal in 13 seconds, and McD probably has a Super Bowl appearance. You know, yes, and I think it's exactly that thought process that keeps him employed, even after 13 seconds. But in a lot of the way that we talk about Josh Allen, we talk about him in a way that what he was doing then, where when he was doing it back then, we weren't really talking about him that way. We were just watching this occur. So you could see where it would just keep on going with McDermott. The law of averages says, well, we got this close. 5, 2, 2, 2, 3, 6. You can actually almost see the curve. It starts 5, 2, 2, 2, 3, 6. You could see the McDermott curve goes up and then starts back down. And they should have won probably too. And if they do that, they're filling up the stadium for the next 10 years. Then hang the banner in the new stadium. McDermott can coach there. It can be another Tomlin situation. But they could never get it done in the clutch. And a lot of times it had to do with this defensive head coach's defense not being able to get a stop. Thank you, John Sanders. Light of truth, so long as Bean is at that home, expect to see the Bills continue to spiral downward. Boycott one Bills drive. Sign the petition. Oh, he's got it. So this is a paid canvasser, lobbyist. You're doing well at that. Well, thank you for your sentiment on that. And I know you can argue the point against Bean quite well and very conveniently when asked to do so. This is a tough situation. I hope they put both defensive and offensive coordinators on the field. Did you mention in episodes way back that there was a cold disconnect instead of Josh just sitting there looking at a tablet? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Philip Neely. And I think that's a problem. I think it's a problem. I mean, there are some offensive coordinators that are up in the booth, but a lot more of them are on the sidelines. But most of the defensive coordinators are on the sideline because it's a feel thing. You're next to these guys and communicating with them, and there must be some value to imparting that on the sideline that far overcomes the ability to see the game from over the top if you're a defensive coordinator. And yet, McDermott doesn't want that on the sideline. You don't see anybody, in terms of a coach, talking in an animated fashion on the sideline. Too much talking, excuse me. Losing the voice. So, yes, thank you, Philip Neely. McDermott was our Marvin Lewis. Could get you to the playoffs every year, but that was it. We just cut the cord a little earlier than Cincinnati. It's a good comparison up the irons. Thanks for being in here. Moss Dog, if y'all boycott the new stadium, maybe I can go watch a game over at Buffalo. I'm from Louisiana or L.A. No, you weren't talking state. You were talking L.A. Well, yep, that new stadium is amazing. I've been next to it a few times, and it's going to be loud, man. It's going to be loud. Great analogy. Yes, it was. Thanks for pointing that out. Marvin Lewis never won a playoff game, though. It's an unfair comparison. I think he was just talking in general. Guys that arc up but can never seem to get past a certain point. Hello, Bills Mafia. Jason Bush is with us. Jason, how are you this fine afternoon when we're getting ready to go root against our team? Now, I've got these games on record. If we're going to get out of here in a couple minutes anyway, but I always have them on record, so I will just say now I'm trying to discourage any reports of progress in the game that might be observed prior to us ending the show, because I'll go watch it anyway. Black Cloud, hello, Jason. Hello, Black Cloud guys. Thank you for talking with each other. Gruden is suing the NFL, so he won't get an interview. Yeah, that's possible. And, the Bills probably don't need to add that to the PR punch list. Sean is a good man and coach, but fails in the most critical times in games, especially in the playoffs. We need a more aggressive coaching style. Josh needs help with wide receivers and Dayball. Sanjay Christopher, what are you doing, man? Good to see you here. Yes, I agree. It needs to be offensive. It needs to be, the Ferrari that you just drive in the back and forth in the driveway. That's a great analogy, or whatever that was. He plans every detail. When anything around him doesn't fall in line, he got rid of them. Yeah, big reason for playoff drought back then because of Tom Brady. Bills pretty much always had to get a wild card spot. Well, they didn't even get a wild card spot. Or I think you're stating that was the only thing that was available to the Bills because they were constantly not being able to win the division from the Brady Patriots. Got it. McDermott probably cost them multiple Super Bowls, honestly. Definitely at least the 13-second season. Slags, yes, absolutely. Trophies should be in the case. It's a travesty. All this talk about culture, why have I never heard this from any other team in the playoffs the last few years outside of Jacksonville? Teams that always talk about culture don't have a franchise quarterback. Well, I don't know how much we're talking about culture. It's important. I think the Bills are close as a team, but I think the team takes on the character of its head coach, and I think Sean McDermott basically had a tightening of the sphincter in the biggest moments in the playoffs, and then that starts to rub off a little bit. And then Josh had his first bad one, first bad playoff game. All the turnovers. I'm talking about the 4 beforehand. But that James Cook couldn't hang on to that ball. That fumble, that cannot happen. And yet it happened. And you could say the player is responsible, and he is, and you scold the player over it. But it's the same thing that comes to my mind when I hear McDermott, when they were talking after a loss, perhaps, or whatever, or famously when talking at halftime, they make the coaches do that quick interview when they're coming off the field or coming back on the field that they then play just before the action starts. And McDermott talks about, well, we have to basically, make sure we're sticking to our fundamentals. Fundamentals. You've had 9 years in this organization. How long does it take to get the fundamentals established? Are they difficult fundamentals because of the difficulty of the defense? Or because it's a team that had a pretty good offensive mind with Josh Allen around in the form of Brian Dayball for a while, but he got rid of him. You overthought everything when you don't have to be like that when you have Josh Allen. It hurts more than it helps. Great. Bills had to hire a retired ref to help McD with end games. Oh, that's seventh head coach candidate. You heard the hey. I think that might be the indication that they finished. I think they were going to meet with Udinski actually today. Grant Udinski. Good time to transition with new energy in conjunction with the new stadium. It could really be a fresh and optimistic time. Timing could be great. JD, yes, I believe that's probably the case, and I think the point I heard made earlier about they couldn't drag McDermott's playoff losing ways into the new stadium. It's just another way of looking at it, but it's a pertinent way of looking at it just because of the emotional reaction you get when you just think of that. If you play the correct defense, Bucker never attempts a 50-yard field goal. Thank you. Yes. Or Scribb kicked the kickoff. He had to F multiple things up in order to allow that. And that's very true. It's like when you talk about aviation accidents as an analogy, there's never just like one reason. What they call it actually in the investigation world is the Swiss cheese model, where you basically have all these slices of Swiss cheese, and there is a way that they all end up lining up so you see a hole through all of them. That's the Swiss cheese model. And it takes a lot of things to be in place for those things to happen. And again, football plays, though they're looked at as singular entities, they're all acts out of this entire game. And everything that's happening in this play is influenced by the last play. It's influenced by the last nanosecond that happened. So it all counts. Every team talks about culture and essence. Football started. Just win, baby. The Patriot way. America's team, etc. Badass, you're right. Black Cloud. Pats seeking 12th Super Bowl appearance. If they succeed today, that will be an NFL record. Go Denver just for today. Rams, the McVay culture. Another great show. Thank you, Jason Bush. I think you mean show. Great show, Ralph. Go Broncos. Yeah, I needed to do this today. I've been kind of down a lot this week. People panicking about Rivers as head coach. What's the problem? He just needs to drive the culture. Give me a Kraft OC and a solid DC. Rivers could be great. I mean, you're so worried, and weren't you worried that this was going to happen all over again with McDermott? All these people that are so worried about what might be coming. No experiments with first-time head coaches. Go ahead and waste 5 more years of Josh Allen. Yes, exactly. That's why I'm thinking. I don't know if you can do a first-time head coach with Josh Allen. I don't know if I think. I think they're going to hire a Dayball. Stephen, how do you plan broadcast in the offseason? Do you pre-draft? You pre-draft team needs? Do you broadcast every week in the offseason? I have to establish that schedule, actually, and I need to do that because it's unfair to you guys who show up. Oh, wow, he's going on in like 17 minutes. Let's drop what we're doing. So I need to get a schedule absolutely going. And, yeah, I'm going to I want to do actually more than I want to do a couple videos a week and get live like maybe 3 nights a week. I don't know. I'd have to check out a daytime thing also, which I'm able to do, and I'm not sure how that works with everybody that watches, but I guess I just need to pick something and stick with it. But yes, absolutely. And we will be doing stuff in the off season. And yes, it does need to be scheduled. It has been loosely so during the season, just simply because of the games, but now it is going to the off season. So I hear what you're saying. I still think if Cook doesn't fumble, the Bills are on the verge of blowing them out. Oh, yeah, absolutely. JP is here. 3 and out on Denver's I don't want to hear results. All right. Well, I'm just going to get off of it now anyway, because I've gone now almost 10 minutes into the game. I said I wouldn't. Guys, thanks for stopping by. Make sure you're subscribed. I see people are dropping off now, all ready to go check out the game. But it was fun talking about this. Plenty more to talk about. And I will see you soon. Be good, do good. God bless, and go Bills. I am the Ralph, and this is the Ralph Rant.